Hello everyone, how are you? Today we will discuss novel Disgrace, and it was written by J.M. Coetzee. Mr. Coetzee is a South African and Australian novelist, translator, essayist and linguist, and this novel was published in 1999, and it depicts the post-apartheid time period in the South Africa from 1948 to 1994, the moment which divides South Africa in two parts. One, you can say, for the white people, other one is the black. There is a racial segregation, discrimination. There were the separate buses, separate restaurants, separate schools, and employment rate was very high, and also the mostly people were serving just like a black people, non-white people, just like a sweeper and the low scale jobs they were doing in South Africa. And the minority of the population, white people, are dominating and controlling the government. And also I want to tell you, they divide the apartments of black and the white people as well. And this novel is basically depicts or portrays the time period after that moment. So there is still the impact of this colonial time period, and at this time we have to consider the mindset of the white people as well as the black people. And the genre of this novel is contemporary, and in modern technique of realism has been used by the author. Narrative technique, third person limited technique has been used, in which mostly time the author writer of this novel will use the reference of the third person. He will call that protagonist he, she, and sometime he is also use the point of view of the single person. So single protagonist is the main and the central character of this novel. And this is all about, and it's setting in 1998, and this story revolves around the main character, central character, Professor David Lowry, who is a professor in the Cape Technical University, and he has an affair with his student. Her name was Melanie Isaac, and Melanie Isaac is a 20 years old student, and we will discuss further. Now we will discuss the plot. The story revolves around the central character David Lowry, and encounter with a different female character like Surya, who is a prostitute. And David is usually habitual to go towards the Surya on every Thursday to fulfill his sex need, because he was already two-time divorced, and he was not satisfied with his career, because before that he was the romanticist professor, and he was teaching that subject. But after the closing of this department, he was serving as a communication professor. So he just want to satisfy himself. And also the other character, Melanie Isaac, who's 20 years old, who is also the student of the David. And David was the person who used his authority and power, and he misused it to fulfill his sexual desire, and he pressurized the Melanie to do the sex with him. And similarly, the other character, Rosalind, ex-wife of the David, which is related to the protagonist of this novel. And in the whole story, the author is giving us message that the unchecked and the unprincipled human nature is very harmful if we will not control it. Just like Sigmund Freud is telling us, some things are dark images, dark sides of the human nature, which are the part of the human beings, the human brain, unconscious part of the brain. And we have to control that ego or player principle in order to maintain the balance in our life and balance in our personality. And also if we will balance our personality, we would be able to maintain a healthy balanced life in this society as well. So if we will discuss about the character of the David Lowry, 52 years old professor in the Cape Town, and he already, I told you, he already two-time divorced, and his daughter is living in the Eastern Cape Town. And first he was a professor of romanticism, I already told you, and he also served as the professor of classic and modern languages before the university closed this department. Now he was working as a supplementary professor of communication he was unsatisfied with his career. Now, student, you can observe this thing because reasoning was that there is no correlation exists between the subject and the teaching he likes. And for getting the satisfaction, he usually liked to visit the Professor Surya on every Thursday, and he was discussing about himself with Surya. But Surya doesn't disclose about herself. So here there is a theme of colonialism is also exist in it. And David, as a white man, consider himself as the master, and the Surya is the black woman who is for the purpose of servitude. So is the marginalization of the women and the black people, and racial discrimination is also exist in this character analysis. Now we will discuss about the Melanie Azek. She is a 20 years old student in the David Romantic Poet course, and she was interested in the stagecraft and design, and she works towards the degree in the theater. And if we will see the David character, he never sees her personality as a student, but instead he was watching her as a pretty and clever girl, and not engaged in the study. David was continuously pressurizing her to do the sex with her, to have a sex with him. But later she raises her voice against the sexual harassment with the university vice rector. So here Melanie was the marginalized, and she was suppressed by the authority and the power of David Laurie as a professor. Now we will come to the character of Lucy. She is the daughter of David and capable, good person, independent girl. She was living Eastern Cape Town. She is earning money by growing and selling flowers, and she was also producing handling the dogs of the different breeds like a German Shepherd. वो उनको शेल्टर, उनको फूड वगैरह प्रोवाइड भी करती थी फार्म हाउस के ऊपर. बट आई वांट टू डिस्कस इंपॉर्टेंट इवेंट इन द नॉवल व्हेन द थ्री मैन who are the black man, they attacked Lucy and locked David in the bathroom, and they raped her. This was the tragic event in the novel. And Ryan, he was boyfriend of the Melanie. Melanie threatened by the David and pressurized by the David due to his authority and power. And Ryan was a person who visited in the classroom, and he was a person who threatened the David for having a sex with Melanie. And Petrus is a black man who purchases the some portion of the Lucy's land, and he built a new house and established his farm. He married with the two women, and he also offers the Lucy to marry him, but Lucy refuses because she already knows that it is a pretext for the Petrus to take over the land in exchange for offering protection. The next very important character, Mrs. Bevsha, she was showing the sympathy in the novel, how the people support each other in the society in the critical time. She was the director of Animal Welfare League near the Lucy farm. Bev is an unattractive and short woman, but she was very sympathetic, good-hearted personality, and she devoted her time to unwanted animals, and she was full of compassion and selflessness, and she take care of Lucy after the rape and also gave the emotional support to the David. And Mr. Belshaw, he was the husband of Mrs. Bevsha, and he was welcoming like her wife, encouraging generous and sportive personality for the Lucy and also the David. And Tigger, he was the landowner, widow, old, and he was the typical example of stereotypical colonizer who belongs to the Germany, and he operates with a colonialist approach in the Eastern Cape Town, and he never travels without the firearm. He's a Farodai Rasool, and she is a social studies professor and chair of the university committees on the discriminations. And Baron is the romantic poet. You already know about it, English poet. And also the Teresa is the young mistress in the Italy of the Baron. Now we will discuss the different themes. First theme is the desire and the power. In the disgraced novel, James Coetzee scrutinized the nature of human desire for the sex. This is the dark sides of the human being, जो कि unconscious brain का एक हिस्सा है. डिफरेंट इमेजेस, डिफरेंट डार्क साइड जो डिज़ायर्स होती हैं ह्यूमन बींग्स की, ठीक है, अनकॉन्शियसली पार्ट होती हैं ब्रेन का, उसको वो हाईलाइट करता है कि वी शुड कंट्रोल इट, अदरवाइज it would create the harmful effect in the personality of a person, same like David. Specifically looking the relationship between power and the sexual yearning. He wants more and more, and he has a relationship with different types of women, sometime prostitute like Soria, sometime with the secretary, sometime with the wives of colleagues, and at the end the Melanie, who was the student. So 52 years old professor misused his power and authority in the relationship of the teacher and the student, and he basically manipulated his position as a teacher, and he compelled Melanie to have a sex with him. Now, the next theme is the shame, remorse, and vanity. Professor David Lowry had an illicit relationship with the student Melanie, and when she complained about all this scandal and about all this sexual harassment, David is summoned to disciplinary hearing, and where he refuses to examine all the allegation which was imposed by the side of Melanie. So, what was the attitude and behavior of the David? He was showing the arrogant behavior. He was showing the vanity, and this is the something which the M. Coetzee was saying, that mostly people are using the mask of the vanity and pride, just want to hide their inner insecurity. Same like character David. So vanity, he thinks the dangerous vanity of the gambler, the vanity and the self-righteousness. He is going into this in the wrong split, but he does not. So when committee was doing all the investigation, Frodai Rasool, who was also the vice rector of this university, and she was complaining about the behavior of the David, and she was saying, I want to register an objection to these responses of Professor Lowry, which I regard as fundamentally evasive, because reasoning was that he was not feeling any regret, so he was not ready to take the moral responsibility, and he just ignored his shortcoming. Even when committee was advised to him to take the counseling, he refused it. Now, the next theme is the violence and empathy. The first important event in the novel is the lack of empathy. When David was doing all this with Melanie, with his student, sexual harassment, and he was pressurized her to have a sex with her and tried to maintain a relationship without the willingness of Melanie, it was the symbol of the lack of empathy. And the second event that shows the violence in the novel, when the three black men attacked the Lucy, who is the daughter of the David, and they raped Lucy in a severe manner. They did what they want to do without considering the humanity. Okay, what are they doing with that lady? Third one is the theme of time and the shame. I'm telling you one thing, that David is a character who resists the change. He was not accepting his old age, and which is the evident in his fascination with the sex, and he was continuously doing this act with the different types of women. He uses the sex as the way to maintain his sense of youthfulness, ultimately trying to recapture his old days, mean his young days as a handsome young ladies man. And I want to also tell you, that it's also depicts the struggling to accept the new social and racial dynamics of the post-apartheid South Africa, in which he was unable to adjust. What was the mentality before that 1994? Because 1948 to 1994 was the time period when there was a discrimination. Racial discrimination exists between white and the black. So although this has been finished, but he was still with the mindset of that master and the slave, and his relationship with the Melanie was just like that. He's the master and she is the slave, because he has authority and the power. And similarly, when he has a relationship with Soria, a prostitute, and he was behaving in the same way. What was he doing? He was discussing with her everything about himself, but Soria was a person who was not willing to tell everything to him. So in this relationship, we can say that he is the master and Soria prostitute is the slave, and one is the colonizer, other one is the colonized. One is marginalized and one is the explored. You can say he was exploiting the his position, and because he was spending the money for serving him on the bed. Theme of love and sport. J.M. Coetzee spotlight the benefits and subtleties of interpersonal sport that is very important for maintain the society, for maintain the you can say bonding between the people. Same like the David and the Lucy, both are father and the mother. When David was expelled from the university due to the scandal, and he left the Cape Town and moved towards his daughter Lucy. She didn't ask so much question about that case. She talked with him casually and prayed to him, and just consider the position and emotion of her father, and tried to develop a good sport for her father. Lesson from the Coetzee side that love and the fugue both can be presented in this way, in such a way that when this is the time when the Lucy shows her affection, love, and sincerity, loyalty towards her father. And as compared to the daughter Lucy, the ex-wife, who was the Rosalind, she called to David and she was humiliated to him in such a words like that, am I allowed to tell you how stupid it looks? Don't expect any sympathy from me, David, and don't expect any sympathy from anyone else either. So the personality of David became the ghost overnight. Now we will discuss the symbols. First symbol is the dog. Dog is a symbol of the lower tier of a society. I told you already, white and the blacks are divided in the South Africa. So dog is always show the lower strata of this society. In the Lucy form, she was also providing the services of kenneling of the German Shepherd, different breed of the dogs. So they were killed in the cage at the incident of the in the form when the three men attacked the Lucy. So we can say that a country where dogs are bred to snarl at the smell of the black man. This was the condition of the South Africa after that. After 1994, rain for the David. Rain have a different interpretation for different people. Like David, first it was symbolized when there was a raining was outside the window, and he was doing the sex with Melanie. So it was the source of cleansing and outpouring of pent up desire, and he experiences the same sense after his sex with the prostitute Surya in chapter 21. And all these events are the prediction of his future troubles and the problems in the David's life. Rain for the Melanie is the source of pain, and Arim Hakim's umbrella is the symbol. And when he was offering the umbrella to the David, he refuses to take this shield. It means the troubles and the problem will come in his coming life, and he has to face the tragedy or the downfall. Rain as a symbol of change and growth. When he arrives in the Lucy's form, I will take the line from the novel that rain for the past 2 years have been good. The water table has vision. So the next symbol is the sheep. Sheep represent the David compassion for the other and his development as a person. In the start, the Patras planned to kill the both sheep because the tie-up sheep. This is also the symbol of the helplessness, same like the Lucy, and but the David sympathizes with the tie-up sheep because all these things will remind him the incident and the event which happened on the Lucy's farm, and when the three men attacked on Lucy and raped her brutally, and he was unable to help her. The David's life. अगर हम कंपैरिजन करें डेविड्स लाइफ एंड ऑल्सो द लाइफ ऑफ बैरन द रोमांटिक पोइट, यहाँ पे हमें रेफरेंस यूज हम इन्फर करेंगे बैरन की जो पोम है लारा, उससे उसकी जो लारा टेल है इन विच द स्पीकर टॉक्स अबाउट द फॉल ऑफ एंजल फ्रॉम हेवंस टू द हेल. Similarly, the same thing happened with the David. He has to face the exile from the Cape Town to the eastern Cape Town when he was expelled from the university. Opera. David pondered his opera about the Byron he lived in the Greece during the last years of his life following a scandal in Italy. Same happened. He has to face the David faced the scandal of Melanie, and similarly the Baron has to face the scandal of the mistress, and all these events are interlinked. We will take the reference from both of them. The next one is the disgrace, is the dishonor and shame of David. Basically, this whole novel is telling us that how the person bring the shame and dishonor for himself and for the other people, and some people accept him and some people reject him. And it also depict the psyche of the human nature, that the human instinct, the dark sides of the human beings. And we can say that this dishonor and shame of David is overall depict his inner psychology, his inner thoughts, and but it can also be defined as a state of falling out of the favor, like the Lucifer and Can. Here the reference of Can allusion has been used in it. यहाँ पे दो तीन allusions को infer कर रहा है. Sometime he was using the Baron reference, and sometime he is using the Testament reference, and the Can was available in this testament that he killed his brother and the god exiled him into the land of Nod. So at the last, Mrs. Isaac says to the David that, so how are the mighty fallen? This was the tragic downfall of the David, the professor who was 52 years old, but he was not admitting the change. He was not correlate with the change of time, and the also the change after 1994. And it also depicts the mindset of the white people. Thank you very much.